Victory Lap by George Saunders. 3 days shy of her 15th birthday, Allison Pope paused at the top of the stairs. Say the staircase was marble. Say she descended and all heads turned. Where was Special One? Approaching now, bowing slightly, he exclaimed, "How can so much grace be contained in one small package?" Oops. Had he said small package and just stood there, broad, prince-like face totally bland of expression? Poor thing. Sorry, no way down, he went. He was definitely not Special One. What about this guy, behind Mr. Small Package, standing near the home entertainment center, with a thick neck of farmer integrity, yet tender, ample lips, who, placing one hand on the small of her back, whispered, "Dreadfully sorry you had to endure that bit about the small package just now. Let us go stand on the moon, or, in the moonlight." Had he said, "Let us go stand on the moon"? If so, she would have to be like, eyebrows up. And if no wry acknowledgement was forthcoming, be like, I am not exactly dressed for standing on the moon, which, as I understand it, is super cold. Come on, guys. She couldn't keep treading gracefully on this marble stairwell in her mind forever. That dear old white hair in the tiara was getting all like, why are those supposed princes making that darling girl march in place ad nausea? Plus she had a recital tonight and had to go fetch her tights from the dryer. Egads, one found oneself still standing at the top of the stairs. Do the thing where, facing upstairs, hand on railing, you hop down the stairs one at a time, which was getting a lot harder lately due to someone's feet were getting longer every day, seemed like. Pas de chat, changement, changement. Hop over thin metal thingy separating hallway tile from living room rug. Curtsy to self in entryway mirror. Come on, Mom, get here. We do not wish to be castigated by Mrs. Callow again in the wings. Although, actually, she loved Mrs. C. So strict. Also, loved the other girls in class. And the girls from school. Loved them. Everyone was so nice. Plus the boys at her school. Plus the teachers at her school. All of them were doing their best. Actually, she loved her whole town. That adorable grocer spraying his lettuce. Pastor Carol with her large, comfortable butt. The chubby postman gesticulating with his padded envelopes. It had once been a mill town. Wasn't that crazy? What did that even mean? Also, she loved her house. Across the creek was the Russian church. So ethnic. That onion dome had loomed in her window since her poof footy days. Also loved Gladsong Drive. Every house on Gladsong was a Corona Del Mar. That was amazing. If you had a friend on Gladsong, you already knew where everything was in his or her home. Jeté, ronde de jambe, pas de bourrée. On a happy whim, do front roll, hop to your feet, kiss the picture of Mom and Dad taken at Penny's back in the Stone Ages when you were that little cutie right there with a hair bow bigger than all outdoors. Sometimes, feeling happy like this, she imagined a baby deer trembling in the woods. "Where's your mama, little guy?" "I don't know," the deer said in the voice of Heather's little sister Becca. "Are you afraid?" she asked it. "Are you hungry? Do you want me to hold you?" "Okay," the baby deer said. Here came the hunter now, dragging the deer's mother by the antlers. Her guts were completely splayed. Geez, that was nice. She covered the baby's eyes and was like, "Don't you have anything better to do, dank hunter, than kill this baby's mom? You seem like a nice enough guy." "Is my mom killed?" the baby said in Becca's voice. No, she said. "The gentleman was just leaving." The hunter, captivated by her beauty, doffed his cap, and going down on one knee said, "If I could will life back into this fawn, I would do so, in hopes you might defer one tender kiss upon our elderly forehead." "Go," she said, "only for your task of penance, do not eat her. Lay her out in a field of clover, with roses strewn about her, and bestow a choir to softly sing of her foul end." "Lay who out?" the baby deer said. "No one," she said. "Never mind. Stop asking so many questions." Pas de chat, changement, changement. She felt hopeful that Special One would hail from far away. The local boys possessed a certain je ne sais quoi, which, tell the truth, she was not très crazy about, such as actually named their own nuts. She had overheard that and aspired to work for county power because the work shirts were awesome and you got them free. So, ixnay on the local boys, a special ixnay on Matt Dre, owner of the largest mouth in the land. Kissing him last night at the pep rally had been like kissing an underpass. Scary. Kissing Matt was like suddenly this cow in a sweater is bearing down on you who will not take no for an answer, and its huge cow head is being flooded by chemicals that are drowning out what little powers of reason Matt actually did have. What she liked was being in charge of her body, her mind, her thoughts, her career, her future. That was what she liked. So be it. We might have a little snack. Un petit repas. Was she special? Did she consider herself special? Oh gosh, she didn't know. In the history of the world, many had been more special than her. Helen Keller had been awesome. Mother Teresa was amazing. Mrs. Roosevelt was quite chipper in spite of her husband, who was handicapped, which, in addition, she had been gay, with those big old teeth, long before such time as being gay and First Lady was even conceptual. She, Allison, could not hope to compete in the category of those ladies. Not yet, anyway. There was so much she didn't know, like how to change the oil, or even check the oil, how to open the hood, how to bake brownies. That was embarrassing, actually, being a girl and all. And what was a mortgage? Did it come with the house? When you breastfed, did you have to, like, push the milk out? Egads. Who is this wan figure visible through the living room window trotting up Gladsong Drive? Kyle Boot. Palest kid in all the land? Still dressed in his weird cross-country toggles? Poor thing. He looked like a skeleton with a mullet. Were those cross-country shorts from the, like, Charlie's Angels days or quoi? How could he run so well when he seemed to have literally no muscles? Every day he ran home like this, shirtless, with his backpack on, then hit the remote from down the fungs and scooted into his garage without breaking stride. You almost had to admire the poor goof. They'd grown up together, been little beaners in that mutual sandbox down by the creek. Hadn't they bathed together when we or some such crud? She hoped that never got out, because in terms of friends, Kyle was basically down to Freddie Slavko, who walked leaning way backward and was always retrieving things from between his teeth, announcing the name of the retrieved thing in Greek, then re-eating it. Kyle's mom and dad hadn't let him do squat. He had to call home if the movie and the world culture might show bare boobs. Each of the items in his lunchbox was clearly labeled. Pas de bourrée and curtsy. Pour quantity of cheese doodles into compartmentalized old-school Tupperware dealie. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Your kitchen rocks. Shake Tupperware dealie back and forth like panning for gold, then offer to some imaginary poor gathered round. Please enjoy. Is there anything else I can do for you folks? You have already done enough, Allison, even by deigning to speak to us. That is so not true. Don't you understand? All people deserve respect. Each of us is a rainbow. Really? Look at this big open sore on my poor shriveled flank. Allow me to fetch you some Vaseline. That would be much appreciated. This thing kills. But as far as that rainbow idea, she believed that. People were amazing. Mom was awesome. Dad was awesome. Her teachers worked so hard and had kids of their own, and some were even getting divorced, such as Mrs. D's, but still took time for their students. What she found especially inspiring about Mrs. D's was that even though Mr. D's was cheating on Mrs. D's with the lady who ran the bowling alley, Mrs. D's was still teaching the best course ever in ethics, posing such question as, can goodness win? Or do good people always get shafted, evil being more reckless? That last bit seemed to be Mrs. D's taking a shot at the bowling alley gal, but seriously, is life fun or scary? Are people good or bad? On the one hand, that clip of those gauntish pale bodies being steamrolled while fat German ladies looked on chomping gum. On the other, sometimes rural folks, even if their particular farms were on hills, stayed up late filling sandbags. In their straw poll, she had voted for people being good and life being fun, with Mrs. D's giving her a pitying glance as she stated her views. To do good, you just have to decide to do good. You have to be brave. You have to stand up for what's right. At that last, Mrs. D had made this kind of groan, which was fine. Mrs. D's had a lot of pain in her life, yet, interestingly, still obviously found something fun about life and good about people, because otherwise, why sometimes stay up so late grading, you come in the next day all exhausted, blouse on backward, having messed it up in the early morning dark, you dear discombobulated thing? Here came a knock on the door. Back door. Interesting. Who could it be? Father Dimitri from across the way, UPS, FedEx, with un petit chèque pour papa. J'étais, rond de jambe, pas de bourrée. Open door, and here was a man she did not know. Quite huge fellow in one of those meter reader vests. Something told her to step back in, slam the door, but that seemed rude. Instead, she froze, smiled, did eyebrow raise to indicate, "May I help you?" Kyle Boot dashed through the garage into the living area, where the big clock-like wooden indicator was set all out. Other choices included mom and dad out, mom out, dad out, Kyle out, mom and Kyle out, dad and Kyle out, and all in. Why did they even need all in? Wouldn't they know it when they were all in? Would he like to ask Dad that, who, in his excellent, totally silent downstairs woodshop, had designed and built the family status indicator? Ha! Ha ha! On the kitchen island was a work notice. Scout. New geode on deck. Place in yard per included drawing. No goofing. Rake areas first. Put plastic down as I have shown you. Then lay in white rock. This geode expensive. Please take seriously. No reason this should not be done by time I get home. This equals 5 work points. Guard, Dad, do you honestly feel it fair that I should have to slave in the yard until dark after a rigorous cross-country practice that included 16 440s, 8 880s, a mile for time, a cajillion Drake sprints, and a 5-mile Indian relay? Shoes off, mister. Yoinks, too late. He was already at the TV and had left an incriminating trail of microclods. Way verboten. Could the microclods be hand-plucked? Although, problem, if he went back to hand-pluck the microclods, he'd leave an incriminating new trail of microclods. He took off his shoes and stood mentally rehearsing a little show he liked to call What If Right Now? What if they came home right now? It's a funny story, Dad. I came in thoughtlessly, then realized what I'd done. I guess when I think about it, what I'm happy about is how quickly I self-corrected. The reason I came in so thoughtlessly was I wanted to get right to work, Dad, per your note. He raced in his socks to the garage, threw his shoes into the garage, ran for the vacuum, vacuumed up the microclods, then realized, holy golly, he had thrown his shoes into the garage rather than placing them on the shoe sheet as required, toes facing away from the door for ease of dunnage later. He stepped into the garage, placed his shoes on the shoe sheet, stepped back inside. Scout, Dad said in his head, has anyone ever told you that even the most maintained garage is going to have some oil on its floor, which is now on your socks, being tracked all over the tan Berber? Oh, gar, his ass was grass. But no, celebrate good times, come on, no oil stain on rug. He tore off his socks. It was absolutely verboten for him to be in the main living area barefoot. Mom and Dad coming home to find him Tarzaning around like some sort of white trasher would not be the least fucking bit. Swearing in your head? Dad said in his head. Step up, Scout. Be a man. If you want to swear, swear aloud. I don't want to swear aloud. Then don't swear in your head. Mom and Dad would be heartsick if they could hear the swearing he sometimes did in his head, such as crap cunt, shit turd, dick in ear, butt creamery. Why couldn't he stop doing that? They thought so highly of him, sending weekly braggy emails to both sets of grandparents, such as, Kyle's been super busy keeping up his grades while running varsity cross country, though still a sophomore, while setting aside a little time each day to manufacture such humdingers as cunt swoggle rear fuck. What was wrong with him? Why couldn't he be grateful for all that Mom and Dad did for him instead of cornhole the ear cunt, flake fuck the pale vestige with a proddering dick knee? You could always clear the mind with a hard pinch on your own minimal love handle. Ouch. Hey, today was a Tuesday, a major treat day. The 5 new work points for placing the geode, plus his existing 2 work points, totaled 7 work points, which added to his 8 accrued usual chore points, made 15 total treat points, which could garner him a major treat. For example, 2 handfuls of yogurt-covered raisins, plus 20 free choice TV minutes, although the particular show would have to be negotiated with Dad at time of cash-in. One thing you will not be watching, Scout, is America's Most Outspoken Dirt Bikers. Whatever. Whatever, Dad. Really, Scout? Whatever. Will it be whatever when I take away all your treat points and force you to quit cross country, as I have several times threatened to do if a little more cheerful obedience wasn't forthcoming? No, 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 I don't want to quit, Dad. Please, I'm good at it. You'll see. First meet, even Matt Dre said. Who is Matt Dre? Some ape on the football team? Yes. Is his word law? No. What did he say? Little shit can run. Nice talk, Scout. Ape talk. Anyway, you may not make it to the first meet. Your ego seems to be overflowing its banks. And why? Because you can jog? Anyone can jog. Beasts of the field can jog. I'm not quitting. Anal cockshit bird rectum frids. Please, I'm begging you. It's the only thing I'm decent at. Mom, if he makes me quit, I swear to God I'll... Drama doesn't suit you, beloved only. If you want the privilege of competing in team sports, Scout, show us that you can live within our perfectly reasonable system of directives designed to benefit you. Hello. A van had just pulled up in the St. Mikhail's parking lot. Kyle walked in a controlled, gentlemanly manner to the kitchen counter. On the counter was Kyle's traffic log, which served the dual purpose of 1. Buttressing Dad's argument that Father Dimitri should build a soundproof retaining wall, and 2. Constituting a data set for a possible science fair project for him, Kyle, entitled by Dad, Correlation of Church Parking Lot Volume versus Day of Week, with ancillary investigation of Sunday volume throughout the year. Smiling agreeably as he enjoyed filling out the log, Kyle very legibly filled out the log. Vehicle, van. Color, gray. Make, Chevy. Year, unknown. A guy got out of the van. One of the usual Ruskies. Ruski was an allowed slang. Also, dang it. Also, holy golly. Also, crapper. The Ruski was wearing a jean jacket over a hoodie, which in Kyle's experience was not unusual church wear for the Ruskis, who sometimes came directly over from Jiffy Lube still wearing coveralls. Under vehicle driver, he wrote, probable parishioner. That stank rather. The guy being a stranger, he, Kyle, now had to stay inside until the stranger left the neighborhood, which totally fucked up his geode placing. He'd be out there until midnight. What a detriment. The guy put on a Dayglow vest. Dude was a meter reader. The meter reader looked left, then right, leapt across the creek, entered the Pope backyard, passed between the soccer ball rebounder and the in-ground pool, then knocked on the Pope door. Good leap there, Boris. The door swung open. Allison, Kyle's heart was singing. He'd always thought that was just a phrase. Allison was like a national treasure. In the dictionary under beauty, there should be a picture of her in that jean skirt, although lately she didn't seem to like him all that much. Now she stepped across her deck so the meter reader could show her something. Something electrical wrong on the roof? The guy seemed eager to show her. Actually, he had her by the wrist and was like tugging. That was weird, wasn't it? Something had never been weird around here before, so probably it was fine. Probably the guy was just a really new meter reader. Somehow, Kyle felt like stepping onto the deck. He stepped out. The guy froze. Allison's eyes were scared horse eyes. The guy cleared his throat, turned slightly to let Kyle see something. A knife. The meter reader had a knife. Here's what you're doing, the guy said, standing right there until we leave. Standing right there until we leave. Move a muscle, I knife her in the heart. Swear to God, got it? Kyle's mouth was so spitless, all he could do was make his mouth do the shape it normally did when saying yes. Now they were crossing the yard. Allison threw herself to the ground. The guy hauled her up. She threw herself down. He hauled her up. It was odd seeing Allison tossed like a rag doll in the sanctuary of the perfect yard her dad had made for her. She threw herself down. The guy hissed something and she rose, suddenly docile. In his chest, Kyle felt many directives, major and minor, he was right now violating. He was on the deck shoeless, on the deck shirtless, was outside when a stranger was near, had engaged with that stranger. Last week, Sean Ball had brought a wig to school to more effectively mimic the way Bev Mirren chewed her hair when nervous. Kyle had briefly considered intervening. At evening meeting, Mom had said that she considered Kyle's decision not to intervene judicious. Dad had said, that was none of your business. You could have been badly hurt. Mom had said, think of all the resources we've invested in you, beloved only. Dad had said, I know we sometimes strike you as strict, but you are literally all we have. They were at the soccer ball rebounder now, Allison's arm up behind her back. She was making a low, repetitive sound of denial, like she was trying to invent a noise that would adequately communicate her feelings about what she just this instant realized was going to happen to her. He was just a kid. There was nothing he could do. In his chest, he felt the lush release of pressure that always resulted when he submitted to a directive. There at his feet was the geode. He should just look at that until they left. It was a great one, maybe the greatest one ever. The crystals at the cutaway glistened in the sun. It would look nice in the yard once he placed it. He'd place it once they were gone. Dad would be impressed that even after what had occurred, he'd remembered to place the geode. That's the ticket, Scout. We are well pleased, beloved only. Super job, Scout. Holy crap, it was happening. She was marching all along meek like the trooper he'd known she'd be. He'd had her in his mind since the baptism of what's-his-name, Sergei's kid, at the Russian church. She'd been standing in her yard, her dad or some such taking her picture. He'd been like, "Hello, Betty." Kenny had been like, "Little young bro." He'd been like, "For you, Grandpa." When you studied history, the history of cultures, you saw your own individual time as hidebound. There were various theories of acquiescence. In Bible days, a king might ride through the field and go, "That one," and she would be brought unto him, and they would be duly betrothed. And if she gave birth unto a son, super, bring out the streamers, she was a keeper. Was she that first night digging it? Probably not. Was she shaking life like a leaf? Didn't matter. What mattered was offspring and the furtherance of the lineage, plus the exaltation of the king, which resulted in righteous kingly power. Here was the creek. He marched her through. The following bullet points remained in the decision matrix. Take to side van door, shove in, follow in, tape wrists, mouth, hook to chain, make speech. He had the speech down cold, had practiced it in both in his head and on the recorder. Calm your heart, darling. I know you're scared because you don't know me yet and didn't expect this today, but give me a chance and you will see we will fly high. See, I am putting the knife right over here and I don't expect I'll have to use it, right? If she wouldn't get in the van, punch hard in gut, then pick up, carry to side van door, throw in, tape wrists, mouth, hook to chain, make speech, etc., etc. Stop. Pause, he said. Gal stopped. Fuck's sake, side door of van was locked. How undisciplined was that? Ensuring that the door was unlocked was clearly indicated on the pre-mission matrix. Melvin appeared in his mind. On Melvin's face was the look of hot disappointment that had always preceded an ass-whooping, which had always preceded the other thing. Put up your hands, Melvin said. Defend yourself. True. Little error there. Should have double-checked the pre-mission matrix. No biggie. Joy, not fear. Melvin was dead 15 years. Mom dead 12. Little bitch was turned around now, looking back at the house. That willfulness wouldn't stand. That was going to get nipped in the bud. He'd have to remember to hurt her early, establish a baseline. Turn the fuck around, he said. She turned around. He unlocked the door, swung it open. Moment of truth. If she got in, let him use the tape, they were home free. He'd pick out a place in Sackett, big-ass cornfield, dirt road leading in. If, fuckwise, it went good, they'd pick up the freeway from there, basically steal the van. It was Kenny's van. He'd borrowed it for the day. Screw Kenny. Kenny had once called him stupid. Too bad, Kenny. That remark just cost you one van. If, fuckwise, it went bad, she didn't properly arouse him, he'd abort the activity, truncate the subject, heave the thing out, clean van as necessary, go buy corn, return van to Kenny, say, "Hey bro, here's a shitload of corn, thanks for the van. I never could have bought a suitable quantity of corn in my car." Then lay low, watch the papers, like he'd done with the non-arousing redhead out in. Gal gave him an imploring look like, "Please don't." Was this a good time to give her one in the gut, knock the wind out of her sails? It was. He did. The geode was beautiful. What a beautiful geode. What made it beautiful? What were the principal characteristics of a beautiful geode? Come on, think. Come on, concentrate. She'll recover in time, beloved only. None of our affairs, Scout. We're amazed by your good judgment, beloved only. Dimly, he noted that Allison had been punched. Eyes on the geode, he heard the little oof. His heart dropped at the thought of what he was letting happen. They'd used goldfish snacks as coins. They'd made bridges out of rocks down by the creek back in the day. Oh God, he should have never stepped outside. Once they were gone, he'd just go back inside, pretend he never stepped out, make the model railroad town, still be making it when Mom and Dad got home. When eventually someone told him about it, he'd make a certain face. Already on his face, he could feel the face he would make, like, what? Allison? Raped? Killed? Oh God, raped and killed while I innocently made my railroad town, sitting cross-legged in underwear on the floor like a tiny little... No, 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 they'd be gone soon. Then he could go inside, call 911. Although then everyone would know he'd done nothing. All his future life would be bad. Forever he'd be the guy who'd done nothing. Besides, calling wouldn't do any good. They'd be long gone. The parkway was just across Featherstone with like a million arteries and clover leaves or whatever sprouting out of it. So that was that. And he'd go. As soon as they left, leave, he thought, so I can go inside, forget this ever. Then he was running. Across the lawn. Oh God, what was he doing? What was he doing? Jesus shit, the directives he was violating. Running in the yard, bad for the sod. Transporting a geode without its protective wrapping. Hopping the fence, which stressed the fence, which had cost a pretty penny. Leaving the yard barefoot. Entering the secondary area without permission. Entering the creek barefoot, broken glass, dangerous microorganisms. And not only that, oh God, he suddenly saw what this giddy part of himself intended, which was to violate a directive so major and absolute that it wasn't even a directive, since you didn't need a directive to know how totally forbidden it was to... He burst out of the creek, the guy still not turning, and let the geo fly into his head, which seemed to emit a weird, edged seep of blood even before the skull visibly indented, and the guy sat right on his ass. Yes, score. It was fun. Fun dominating a grown-up. Fun using the most dazzling gazelle-like leg speed ever seen in the history of mankind to dash soundlessly across space and master this huge galoot, who otherwise right now would be... What if he hadn't? God, what if he hadn't? He imagined the guy bending Allison in two like a pale garment bag while pulling her hair and thrusting bluntly as he, Kyle, sat cowed and obedient, tiny railroad viaduct grasping his pathetic babyish... Jesus! He skipped over and hurled the geo through the windshield of the van, which imploded, producing an inward rain of glass shards that made the sound of thousands of tiny bamboo wind chimes. He scrambled up the hood of the van, retrieved the geode. Really? Really? You were going to ruin her life? Ruin my life? You cunt probe dick munch ass gashing animal? Who's bossing who now? Gash ass, jizz lips, turd munch? He'd never felt so strong, angry, wild. Who's the man? Who's your daddy? What else must he do to ensure that animal did no further harm? You still moving, freak? Got a plan, stroke dick? Want a skull gash on top of your existing skull dash, big man? You think I won't? You think I... Easy, Scout. You're out of control. Slow your motor down, beloved only. Quiet. I'm the boss of me. Fuck. What the hell? What was he doing on the ground? Had he tripped? Did someone wonk him? Did a branch fall? God damn. He touched his head. His hand came away bloody. The beanpole kid was bending to pick something up. A rock. Why was that kid off the porch? Where was the knife? Where was the gal? Crab crawling toward the creek, flying across her yard, going into her house. Fuck it, everything was fucked. Better hit the road. With what, his good looks? He had like $8 total. Christ, the kid smashed the windshield with the rock. Kenny was not gonna like that one bit. He tried to stand but couldn't. The blood was just pouring out. He was not going to jail again, no way. He'd slit his wrists. Where was the knife? He'd stab himself in the chest. That had nobility. Then the people would know his name. Which of them had the balls to samurai themselves with a knife in the chest? None. Nobody. Go ahead, pussy, do it. No, the king does not take his own life. The superior man silently accepts the mindless rebuke of the rabble, waits to rise and fight anew. Plus, he had no idea where the knife was. Well, he didn't need it. He'd crawl into the woods, kill something with his bare hands, or make a trap from some grass. Ugh, was he gonna barf? There he had, right on his lap. Figures you'd blow the simplest thing, Melvin said. Melvin, God, can't you see my head is bleeding so bad? A kid did it to you. You're a joke. You got fucked by a kid. Oh, sirens. Perfect. Well, it was a sad day for the cops. He'd fight them hand to hand. He'd sit until the last moment, watching them draw near, doing a silent death mantra that would centralize all his life power in his fists. He sat thinking about his fists. They were huge granite boulders. They were a pit bull each. He tried to get up. Somehow his legs weren't working. He hoped the cops would get here soon. His head really hurt. When he touched up there, things moved. It was like he was wearing a gore cap. He was going to need a bunch of stitches. He hoped it wouldn't hurt too much. Probably it would, though. Where was that beanpole kid? Oh, here he was, looming over him, blocking out the sun, rock held high, yelling something, but he couldn't tell what because of the ringing in his ears. Then he saw that the kid was going to bring the rock down. He closed his eyes and waited and was not at peace at all, but instead felt the beginnings of a terrible dread welling up inside him. And if that dread kept growing at the current rate, he realized in a flash of insight there was a name for the place he would be then, and it was hell. Allison stood at the kitchen window. She'd peed herself, which was fine. People did that when super scared. She'd noticed it while making the call. Her hands had been shaking so bad, they still were. One leg was doing that thumper thing. God, the stuff he'd said to her. He'd punched her. He'd pinched her. There was a big blue mark on her arm. How could Kyle still be out there? But there he was, in those comical shorts, so confident he was goofing around, hands clenched over his head like a boxer from some cute alt universe where a kid that skinny could actually win a fight against a guy with a knife. Wait, his hands weren't clenched. He was holding the rock, shouting something down at the guy who was on his knees, like the blindfolded prisoner in that video they'd seen in history, about to get sword killed by a formal dude in a helmet. Kyle, don't, she whispered. For months afterward, she had nightmares in which Kyle brought the rock down. She was on the deck trying to scream his name, but nothing was coming out. Down came the rock. Then the guy had no head. The blow just literally dissolved his head. Then his body tumped over, and Kyle turned to her with this heartbroken look of, my life is over. I killed a guy. Why was it, she sometimes wondered, that in dreams we can't do the simplest things? Like a crying puppy is standing on some broken glass and you want to pick it up and brush the shards off its pads, but you can't because you're balancing a ball on your head. Or you're driving and there's this old guy in crutches and you go to Mr. Feeder, your driver's ed teacher, should I swerve? And he's like, probably. But then you hear this big clunk and Feeder makes a negative mark in his book. Sometimes she'd wake up crying from the dream about Kyle. The last time, Mom and Dad were already there, going, that's not how it was. Remember, Allie? How did it happen? Say it. Say it out loud, Allie. Can you tell Mommy and Daddy how it really happened? I ran outside, she said. I shouted. That's right, Dad said. You shouted. Shouted like a champ. And what did Kyle do, Mom said. Put down the rock, she said. A bad thing happened to you kids, Dad said, but it could have been worse. So much worse, Mom said. But because of you kids, Dad said, it wasn't. You did so good, Mom said. Did beautiful, Dad said.